One of the things that I think really concerns people about advertising is it replays in your head at times that you don't particularly want it. You may be trying to pay your bills, or you may be thinking, but it keeps coming back. We don't have control of our consciousness. So one of the reasons for writing this book is looking at Thoreau and Walden when he figured out he couldn't hear himself think and that there was too much gossip in his culture. He went to Walden in order to contemplate, to meditate, to have a place where he could see himself in perspective, see society in perspective. Nowadays, last time I went to Walden, there were two kids there texting each other. So it's not a geographical place anymore that you go to transcend. You have to go to the Walden within, and that requires taking some of the electricity out of your circuits so that you can actually have a sense of balance, purpose, direction, thinking about where you're going in life. A lot of us had a vision as a child or before we got married or whatever else about a strong sense of direction. But now we have so much else replaying in our head, we often lose track of who we are, what we want to create, what kind of relationships we'd like. And so it's like the syrup that covers waffles or pancakes, the media. It begins to weigh us down, and the part of us that wants to emerge and create and do something different often gets lost in the conformity and repetition of the activity of watching again and again.
Do the students at Emerson, do some of them feel like, wow, I can take this challenge and I can maybe make this difference? Do you ever see some students just really emerge and say, boy, I want to be a leader in this field?
Yeah, I love Emerson because students there often have a very high EQ, energy quotient, as well as IQ, and they want to use that energy quotient to create and make a difference and so forth. When they do the media fast or the media diet or the media diary in the class, a few of them rebel and a few of them don't have a great experience. That's true of almost any experiment. But many of them, this becomes something they remember for life and they write me about. They say, you know, it's time I did another media fast, or it's summer, I can do a lot of outdoor activity and remember what it's like to be a kid again or to be myself again, or, you know, take off 20 pounds. So some of them actually really find this to be captivating and nourishing, and they recommend other students take the class. So I think it's quite an opportunity for many students, and many Emerson students have said the media fast was the best thing they ever did. There are a few others who have said, not me. And I say, that's right, it's not for everyone.
Interesting. Group fasting. Taking a group family or a class on a fast.
There's a whole chapter there about how to take your class on a fast if you're a teacher. A lot of high school and college teachers like this idea, gets people thinking. Some people want to take their family on a media fast. We used to call them a camping trip or a boating trip or whatever else, to bond, to really, you know, work out family challenges or to just have fun. And that seems to be a lost art in most families these days.
You know what's interesting? Because I saw the Captain America movie this week.
Oh, yeah.
Wrote the review, sent it to, I write for TMR Zoo, and so I said to the guys, the publishers, hey, can't put it out until midnight. So midnight this morning is when it could launch. And when we were going to Maine, my family, you know, Mom and Dad would take us to Maine every year. I had comic books. I had Captain America. Mm-hmm. That was my escapism, but I still got to be with the family at dinner, go to the beach together.
Right.
But then I could go to my room and read my comic books.
Right.
And it was I think the kids today who are all flocking to see Captain America tonight, I think they would have appreciated the time, because Anthony out here, you met Anthony.
Yep.
And last night we were discussing comic books and he said he read the entire early X-Men and early Avengers, and I'm saying, I lived in the 60s, like I started like at episode number 20, and I have to wait every month. You don't know the feeling of waiting in anticipation every month.
That's right.
A different world.
That's the way movies were too, you know. For my parents, they had serialized episodes every Saturday. You'd wait to go see the next installation.
Batman.
And so that was worth waiting for. Now when you have, 200 movies available to you any given week, it kind of makes it very boring in a way. You kind of say, well, I know what this is predictable. You know, when you had to wait for it, it was like Christmas. You were building up, you know, what's going to happen next.
I reviewed the early Batman serials for allmovie.com. Bruce and I were talking about AllMusic. They have another site, AllMovie, that I wrote movie reviews for. The Batman serials, interesting. I think it was the first Batman. His son became the producer and writer for the James Bond movies.
What do you know?
But finding historically even going back when you weren't waiting for it week after week, still having the DVD, why aren't people wanting to watch 1940s movies on regular TV? It's just kind of relegated to some back door on the thousands of channels you're talking about. And you know, they could run a lot of these black and whites all the time. We do. After this show tonight, we have a movie that we're running, public domain,
Oh, great.
with Jeannie Cagney is in it. And it was a different time. I think people need to slow down. So maybe there's a sequel for you, not only Media Fast, but Media Slowdown.
Actually, the last chapter is all about slow down.
Didn't get there.
It asks the question, when do we speed up? When do we slow down? When do we maintain an even keel? And in an age when speed up is so prevalent, isn't slow down a lost art? And aren't there all kinds of things in our life that we're missing out on, like the space between the leaves, or the smell of the coffee, or really seeing who it is you're talking to and having fun? A lot of that's lost in the chase. It's one long chase scene.
Well, the 20-somethings today think that Match.com is the new way of meeting people. I'm thinking that's a lame excuse for not walking up to someone and saying hi. You know, that, you know, you want to meet someone face to face. I'm not saying which one is better, but I'm just thinking this whole thing of meeting people online, boy, it takes the courage of like getting up and seeing someone you really like and you're really attracted to and saying, wow, I got to come up with a really good line because this one's not getting away. And you're looking online, you might as well be looking at, you know, Raquel Welch or Alec Baldwin or whatever you're into. But you're just looking for someone who's fitting your profile without seeing how they move or maybe hearing a conversation. So they're detaching themselves. This whole fast media thing is helping them detach from, it's creating a internet kind of reality.
Well, if you interview a lot of divorce lawyers, they may not all tell you this, but several will tell you that divorce is on the increase for several reasons, one of which is often cited as media. Because let's say the husband has an addiction to the Red Sox or an addiction to porn, the wife has an addiction to Facebook or whatever else. They say, don't talk now, wait until the commercial. And that becomes pretty aggravating. Or not tonight, tomorrow will get, you know, because, and tomorrow never comes in a way because the addiction is so strong. And so it's not just divorce, but it's also parents and children. A lot of children, you know, basically are lost in an electronic cave. And so the parents become secondary. There's some research showing in the Marshall Islands how this happened. Once headsets came to the children in the Marshall Islands and other places, instead of respecting the elders in the tribe who were venerated because of their wisdom and so forth, they basically thought, these stupidos, they don't know Janet Jackson, they don't know Madonna, who are they to tell me what to do? And so basically it created a schism in their culture between the youth and the older people. So pop culture has a lot of hidden effects, and when you introduce it to a new society, you begin to discover this may actually be damaging to society at large. It may be changing in our relationships in ways that we'd rather not have happen. We could have had a closer tie with our children, with our parents, maybe even grandparents, our spouse, our friends, but we were too busy and too obsessed with the next episode or setting up a new website or whatever to notice that they were drifting into heavy drug territory or into somebody else's relationship.
It is it's a dilemma. Like you said, there's good, there's bad. With anything, there's going to be some positive to it too.
And so that's why I want to keep mentioning that my bias is balance. That anything a human being can do, they can do with great positive pro-social meaning and with total destruction as well. So we've seen that with fire, which can keep you warm and can also burn down an entire city. And we've seen that with media that can become slash, clash, crash, trash for cash. But it can also become the way that we preserve our great masterpieces in society.
Well, you were talking about ethics in the book too.
Absolutely.
And ethics is so important. And a lot of big business ethics are right out the window. Being honest, being caring about the customer. Customers, I feel, are cattle now. And if you complain correctly, if you have a legitimate complaint and you air it in a private and professional way, they get angry.
Right.
Big business pushes people.
I notice a huge disparity in the budgets of companies without integrity between the money they put into marketing versus the money they put into customer service. And you immediately know when you're working to a company without much ethical integrity, when you can't get through, when you have a problem. Customer service doesn't work, but marketing works extremely well. You want to add another service, they're right at you, and they'll tell you 3 or 4 more services you can add before you hang up. And so I think there are a lot of ethical issues that go with the media that we find are incessant. Invasion of privacy is one of them. Truth-telling is another. People don't know when they're hearing something that's biased or something that's truncated or something that's shortchanged. I think many people are concerned also the internet about security issues. That's a huge issue. And excess. Excess. A lot of people who aren't concerned about sex are concerned about excessive sexuality. A lot of people who aren't concerned about violence per se are concerned about excessive violence or excessive storytelling. How much more do we need to know about Lindsay shoplifting or getting drunk, or how much more do we need to know about the latest celebrity scandal? I'm not even sure we need to know a whole lot more about Rupert Murdoch right now, as exciting and interesting as it is.
Oh, I think we do. I'll debate you on that one. I think that what he has done is so off the charts. And no one can tell me he didn't know, that he didn't maybe even institute some of these policies.
If that comes out, I want to hear it in a balanced way, but not smotherage, not 24/7, 365.
Well, Kaylee Anthony, I mean, that was crazy. Casey
That's
Anthony.
another example. Yeah.
I would rather them spend time looking for all these other kids that get murdered, and maybe, you know, if they had the huge, vast amount of kids that are getting murdered and people being abused, you'd see thousands on the TV, and maybe that would send a message that it's not just this one specific incident.
It creates a false world in our heads, too. I ask my students, how many of you have opinions about Obama? And they'll all raise their hands. I'll ask them, how many of you have strong opinions about bin Laden? They'll all raise their hands. I'll ask, how many of you have strong opinions about Lady Gaga? They'll all raise their hands. Then I'll say, how many of you spent 8 hours off camera in an unedited way with any of these people? And none of them will raise their hands. And so we create a false world where we think we know about all these people. We think we know whether Kaylee Anthony is innocent or guilty, but in fact, we weren't a juror. And in fact, we may not have had legal training. In fact, we've never met her in our lives. We don't even know if it's a ratings scandal and whether she actually did, whether she even has a child or not, or had one. It's all an illusion.
We really don't, do we?
We don't. And so Plato had this warning to society that reading would be a great danger to us. And here I am, a university professor, saying this, because we walk around talking as if we had the semblance of knowledge without actually knowing it. And I ask my students, would you rather have a lifeguard who's watching your child who's read a book about lifeguarding, or one who's actually trained in swimming and lifeguarding? Would you rather have brain surgery by someone who's seen a show about brain surgery, or someone who studied it for 8 years with a leading brain surgeon? And yet we let this simulated reality and opinion about it take over our worlds. We're all talking about the latest this or that as if we're authorities on it, and yet we've never touched it with our own hands.
Now, you see, I was playing with media while you were talking, so that the audience would say, well, he's not paying attention. I actually was paying attention. And I was doing my show at the same time, because that's what professionals do. At the end of our show, we talked to Frank Dell'Estrito about the movie that's coming in. Frank is Bela Lugosi's biographer, or one of them. And every week he does call in. And so